from them over and over again. And in fact, if you read their books, you see this arrogance towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout their books. And in fact, some contemporary writers writing about the Jews and the teachings of the Talmud and so forth, they say it is a self-worship. It is a worship of man instead of a worship of God. And in fact, there's one incident in the Talmud in which there was supposedly a dispute between God and the Jewish rabbis and the Jewish scholars. So there was a debate between God and these rabbis, and they could not come to a resolution. So they decided to refer the matter to one of the rabbis. So I guess these were scholars, not technically speaking rabbis. There's a difference between them. So they referred the matter to one of the rabbis. And when that rabbi made his decision, God was forced to admit that he was mistaken. He was mistaken and that they were correct. In fact, Brother Hadi told me recently he was watching a program about the tsunami and different religious groups, and I guess it was a rabbi. The rabbi said that if God did this, talking about the tsunami, if God did this, then we have to fight God. This kind of attitude just kind of flows from what we see about them in the Quran. And by the way, don't think that this is the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ speaking about them in this way and this is some kind of anti-Jewish propaganda and so forth. Because these same things, many of these stories, and I didn't have the time to identify all of them, but many of these same things, you can find them in the Bible itself. And you can even find them much harsher sometimes in the Bible. So for example, the story of the worshipping the calf, you can find it in the Bible. But it's amazing how their prophets, now I'm speaking from a secular point of view, it's amazing that Muslims have to rescue their own prophets from what they say about them. Because in the story in the Bible in Exodus, chapter 32, verses 1 through 6, in that story it is Harun who makes the golden calf for them. First they were told by God to steal the jewels, the gold and the jewelry from the Egyptians, and then Harun, according to this story, makes this calf for them, and then they worship this calf. So they put the blame on Harun actually. And then Musa comes and sees him that he gets upset and so forth. But we know, alhamdulillah, from the Quran that was not the case. It was not Harun. Harun was trying to stop them. He was the prophet in their midst trying to stop them. The Quran, for example, talks about their claim that they boast about the fact that they claim that they killed Jesus. You'll find this in the Quran. Of course, now, somehow they've convinced many Christians that they were not involved in the killing of Jesus. But if you go to Israel Shahak's book, Jewish History and Jewish Religion, The Weight of 3,000 Years, he says, according to the Talmud, and he's familiar with the Talmud, according to the Talmud, Jesus was executed by a proper rabbinical court for idolatry, inciting other Jews to idolatry and contempt of rabbinical authority. All classical Jewish sources which mention his execution are quite happy to take responsibility for it. And in the Talmudic account, the Romans are not even mentioned. And then the Talmud goes on and says that Jesus' punishment in hell is to be immersed in boiling excrement. So these things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning in the Quran, and it's not some accusations about the Jews. If you read the Old Testament, if you read the books of the prophets, how they speak about the Jews and basically giving up on those people because of their intransigence to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is something clear. So it's not something that we are claiming about them. Even in their own books, you can find it. Now what is the lesson that we should get from them, and what is the point that we should get from them? And these incidents and the reference to Al-Maghdubi alayhim, that we'll have to leave for next time, inshallah. Because our time is up. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.